tonight with all the ladies in the house. I just felt compelled to talk about, honestly, some stuff that is very much so related to women. Um, I've been having a lot of fun with my sisters this week. For those of you who don't know, I'm on a cruise down the Mediterranean, up the Mediterranean, down the Mediterranean with my parents and sisters. And man, it's been so special. It's been so incredibly special. I even tonight I was thinking, I was just like, man, when would this ever happen again? I have no idea. And that was part of the reason, literally a week before the cruise, that I bought my ticket. I just knew that I would always regret not being here with my parents. And it's funny, it's actually turned into being so much more than just enjoying this with my parents. It's been so incredibly special to be here with my two younger sisters. I am one of six kids and I'm number four, and my two littles are so incredibly close. And then my older three, growing up, they were also close. And so I was just kind of the literally the middle child, bouncing back and forth between the olders and the youngers. And it's just been such an incredibly special trip. And so tonight, I actually don't anticipate talking about business at all. It's really a conversation for the women, and perhaps this will end up serving men too. And actually, it was catalyzed by a question that I was asked probably about a year ago by a man that I've just been kind of considering over the last few weeks, that tonight just felt like an ample time to discuss. And so tonight we're going to be talking about some very common questions and things on hearts of women that I've continuously encountered over the last few years, and questions that I've encountered as well that I have had to work through, and some of which I'm still working through, some of which that I'm so grateful I've been able to get to the other side, and still at times find my way kind of back at the very beginning to work through all over again with a new season of life. And even just new dynamics. It's so funny how the things that we think we've conquered, we find ourselves in a new environment and we're like, I thought I'd beaten that. And here we are all over again. So most weekends, there's no conversation of business whatsoever. And so this Saturday is one of those days where we're just not really touching business. Although I will say, every single topic, every single category in some way or another does effectively touch business at the end of the day, because we show up in our business and who we are in our personal life is the same person in our professional life. So perhaps I shouldn't even say we're not talking business, because in some ways we always are. But today's topic is more so actually about, I really want to talk about freedom for women. I grew up in a very conservative environment, very religious environment. And even today, up on the top deck of our cruise ship, my sisters and I were talking about, well, what even is the definition of Christianity? Because so much of our upbringing was in a Christian environment, and that term in and of itself is rather ambiguous, even for among the three of us. As we were talking, my youngest sister is 26. The one in between us is 27, about to turn 28, and I'm in my 30s. And so we've got these different vantage points. And even in our own upbringing, we experienced Christianity in very different levels and different, I guess you could say, degrees of intensity that then formed and shaped who we are today in adulthood. And I got married at 20 years old. I was a child bride, and neither of them have been married. And so there's just very, very different experiences that we bring to the table as we talk about womanhood and femininity, and how the religious culture and environment shaped us and formed who we are, much less so the decisions that we made as a consequence of that. And so as we dive into this tonight, I would love to receive feedback as we go. I know sometimes the chat blows up during these conversations. Sometimes it's very quiet. And so as you're watching, I would love to hear from you. I was asked by actually a man a year ago. We were actually at a mastermind event, and he asked me, he was like, man, Christine, like you're so fashionable, which was so kind. Well, frankly, it was so fun to hear that. I was like, oh my gosh, you think I'm fashionable? I love that. He was like, Christine, you're so fashionable. Have you always been that way? And it made me pause because one, it was so fun to hear that. I was like, woohoo. But second, I realized in that moment the answer was definitely no. I had not always been fashionable. And in one sense I don't even think of myself as fashionable now today. The category of wardrobe is, what do I like? How do I want to dress, as opposed to how do I fit in for the environment around me and the world around me and the women around me, and what would other people say I look good in, versus what do I really like? What do I think is beautiful? And so over the last 3 years, that has been a category of questioning that I've just been continuously working towards and honing in on. That has been the focus of kind of the defining buy box for what I choose to wear and the aesthetics of my own personal brand. And his question sparked this for me, along with another question that was asked by a woman at a knowing retreat. So I've hosted a few knowing retreats over the last year. The first one was in June 2024. Both men and women were in attendance, and then I hosted a men's retreat after that, an all women's retreat after that one, and then the one that followed was actually couples. And it's been such an interesting experience to see what comes up in these group environments versus just one gender or another. And for the woman's retreat, a woman who had actually grown up in a very similar environment as me, perhaps more conservative, she asked me, she was like, man, Christine, can you talk about how to effectively break free in a mental, cognitive manner from kind of the religious rules, how we were told to exist in terms of shoulds and should nots, versus an entirely free. And when I kind of close my eyes and vision of what free really means, there was one point in my life, shortly after my husband left, shortly after the papers were signed and everything was done. It was in 2022, early on. I was presented with an opportunity to go to California and pursue a business endeavor. And I felt like, and it's very, I don't have very like picturesque visions, let's say, of when I'm describing something. I see it so clearly in my mind's eye. But in this moment, it was very, very clear. Like I was contending against something, and it felt like I had like these talons in my back, almost like claws in my back, and they represented fear, like a oh gosh, it's so hard to even put into words. It was like this visceral fear. I've never felt fear to the extent that I did in this moment in 2022, where I felt like I was at a crossroads that I had never experienced ever before in my life, where I had to make a decision. Am I going to give into fear and take this road, or am I actually going to break off those talons of fear, break off the chains, and thus consequently break off the chain of should? Because to pursue the path of the unknown, to pursue that which I have no idea what is going to happen, I have no idea what like the predictable future is entirely erased. I have no idea what will happen when I get on that plane and the weeks after. And man, I felt almost frozen, like just completely unable to move in one way. I just felt that element of fear so gripping me. And it was interesting, when we think about what was really happening in my body, my nervous system. Now I can look back and kind of be like, oh wow, like I understand the science of what was happening in my body, the biology. I call it the 4 F's: fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. When our nervous system is activated, our four F's come into activation to seek to protect us. Our body starts kind of activating either one of those 4 F's around 40% of our fullest capacity. Around 40%, our body is like, oh, there's danger, and danger is the unknown. So actually, it's not really danger. It's just something our body doesn't actually know what's about to happen. And therefore it's like, we don't have data on this, watch out. And so it will kick into gear one of these 4F's responses in order to keep us hedged within the bets of what could happen. It wants us to exist in the predictable future so that it can effectively repeat patterns, repeat behaviors, because the more we exist in the unknown, the less our body is actually able to control and predict the outcome. And so, accordingly, it activates one of these 4F's: fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. And so my body was effectively freezing in that moment. And so looking back, I just knew I had this wild opportunity. I knew that in that moment, my decision to either freeze and stay small and to give into the fear, or move into the unknown. And I knew that in so doing, there was so much risk of what will people think, especially because this was a time where, newly, freshly divorced, man, it was like I felt like I was a kid again in some ways. I was a kid when I got married, and when my husband left, and I had no man in my life. It's like I had no idea who I was. I had no idea. And so to effectively be stripped of all identity, you're starting with a clean slate. And so I chose to move into the unknown and chose to lean into this whole element of, I have no idea what's going to happen, but I don't want fear to rule my life. And I don't want fear of what other people will think to rule my life. And it was those little obviously that was a big decision in that moment, to hop on a plane and go across the country to pursue this business opportunity. And it was so many incremental decisions thereafter, all of which, I talked at the very beginning of this episode about, we're talking about clothing as an example of this element of moving into freedom. And it's not small. The decision of what we wear every single day, that actually holds weight. When my husband left, I just felt like I couldn't wear the same clothes anymore. Like, I actually got rid of almost everything that I owned kind of in this life, in this past life, that I lived. I feel like, even yesterday I was thinking about this. I feel like I live a completely different life than I did then. I'm a completely different person on the inside. I actually don't know how much, and this is probably a good question for me to ask those closest to me, like, how am I different? But I just feel so incredibly different than I was that woman who was married to this man, so desperately wanting to earn love and earn approval and be liked. And it's like, gosh, what do you have to do? And I couldn't figure out the script. However, now it's like, well, the script that I never tried to play was actually, let me try being authentic. Let me try being me. Instead, it was, let me seek to continuously conform to who the ideal is that my husband had in mind. Let me try to be this person. And God only knows, right? God only knows if I had been me, what would have happened. I have my own theories, but I just know that I never, ever actually took a shot at being authentic Christine throughout my marriage. It was constantly a striving and a pursuit of who he wanted me to be, and shape shifting and morphing and trying so desperately to be that person. And so this question of, well, who are you, and what we wear, and how and why is that even associated in the first place? Y'all, the clothes that we wear hold. I have felt when I put on something that I genuinely love, man, I feel my own self. I feel my energy lifting. So, I have my book, Letting Go. I've referenced this book so many times over the last month, and it's always like in the other room or in my bag or at my house while I'm traveling. And so I have it right here with me. David Hawkins' Letting Go. Y'all, it takes me forever to go through books because I feel like I consume it. I'm eating a meal every time I sit down and read. So I read like a page and I'm like, I'm forever changed. And I really am. Like, it's made such an incredible impact on me. So I can't move fast through the book. So the reason why I brought this up Why did I bring it up? I don't even remember why I brought this up. That's so funny. I just got excited to see it. I don't know. Oh, yes. Now I remember. Okay. Okay, so David Hawkins in Letting Go talks about energetic levels and how he effectively assigns a numerical value to every single emotion. And I want to see if I can actually find it in the book. It's towards the beginning. Let's see what chapter it's in. He outlines every single, here it is. He outlines every single emotion and its energetic frequency. So the very lowest one is shame at 20, and the levels range between 20 and 600. Shame is at 20, guilt 30, apathy 50, grief 75, fear 100, desire 125, anger 150, pride 175, courage 200. And I would say at 200 is kind of when it starts moving into a more so positive state of being. Neutrality 250, which is interesting. Willingness 310, acceptance 350, reason 400, love 500, joy 540, peace 600. So peace is like the ultimate level of energetic frequency surrounding an emotion that we're striving towards. And the reason why actually this really makes sense to me is because when I think of somebody who comes to me and they're in a state of shame on an emotional level, I feel that energy. I feel it for myself. I feel it for them. So when somebody comes up to me and they're in shame, it's like you can see the physical manifestation of the shame that they're internally carrying. Their shoulders are a little hunched. Their head's a little bit down. They kind of look at you like this, and they're talking small, and there's just a very subservient expression and mode of being. And I've experienced that for myself. I've experienced it in other people. Yet when you're experiencing someone, let's say, who is in love or joy, let's say joy. So that's 540. That's just below the highest energetic frequency associated with the emotion of peace, which is the highest one. Joy is right below that. And man, if someone comes bounding up to me and they are like, "Hi, Christine, I'm so excited to meet you. Tell me who you are. I'm Mark. I'm the CEO of this company. Man, I'm on a mission to change the world in this regard or another." I sense that 100%. There's an openness. There's the shoulders rolled back. There's a head held high. They exude this energetic, like force that I then receive as the person that they're coming up and speaking to. Much less so if I'm the person holding and possessing joy, man, I just feel incorrigible, right? It's like nothing can get me down. And I've experienced, I just love the way that Hawkins writes this, that there's literally the value there of when you are in shame, you're levels down in energy, and when you're in joy, your levels up. And I think every single one of this, if we're to be radically honest with ourselves, each one of us knows what this feels like. Each one of us knows what it's like to experience either one of these, and the range in between shame to joy to peace. There's a whole range of emotions that are experienced, and thus energetic levels. And so I know that when I put on something that I don't like in terms of clothing, when I put on something I don't like, when I put on something that I don't feel confident in, when I put on something that honestly I'm wearing for and with the desire to impress somebody else, man, my energetic levels are so far down. And you know what's funny? When I'm doing that, when I'm dressing for somebody else, I'm probably more so on the level of pride, which is more so ego, at level 175. That's a long way down from 600 peace, which is the ideal. And it's like the more I actually am moving up levels, the more my physical energy shifts and the more what I wear shifts. Like ladies, the element of clothing is so incredibly important. And I said this once for the girls. It's also for the men too. I have spoken with other executives who have historically worn clothes that they wore out of almost this form of rebellion. Like everyone's wearing a suit and tie. Well, screw you all. I'm gonna wear a t-shirt and basketball shorts. They wore. Or another person who everyone's dressed in sweatpants. Well, I'm gonna dress nice. Whatever the kind of rebellious outfit or attire is to make a statement, if we're dressing for anyone else, that is just a sign that our behaviors are going to follow suit. So, what we wear is really a signal, first and foremost, to ourselves. Am I actually living and behaving in accordance to the impression and desire of others to perceive me in a certain way? Or am I actually free to wear what I love, to wear what brings me joy, to wear what I find to be attractive or beautiful, or whatever the insert adjective here surrounding that article of clothing? How much am I doing this actually for me or for others? Because what we wear can serve as a mirror to how we're most likely showing up in terms of our behavior. And each one of those aspects is predicated in a belief around ourselves and around those around us. So, this concept of how do we break free from dressing and existing in beholdens to other people? I really found so much freedom in actually sitting with this question, well, what do I like? And it took me a while to figure that out. And even still, I'm still figuring it out because my taste changes. And so I still get to ask myself that question on a daily basis of what do I like? What do I want? And the difference there, and I actually think that this is really important. Um, what's his name? David Brooks authored a book called The Second Mountain. I read this years ago. Actually, both my former husband and I were recommended to read it. And it really made an impact on me. Effectively, the concept is that so many folks are born and raised and cultivated on the first mountain. And the first mountain is akin to cultivating myself, building my career. What do I want? Leaning into everything that constitutes myself and my own fulfillment and my own success. Whereas the second mountain is all about community, all about the good of others and how do I contribute to the larger picture of the whole. And what David Brooks talks about in this book of the second mountain is that once you reach the pinnacle of the first mountain, something typically happens. I mean, gosh, even what's his name? Brad Pitt, after he reached the pinnacle of his career, he's like, is this really it? There's this famous quote, man. I would look it up right now. Maybe I'll put it in the chat later on, but he says this really, really powerful quote that I heard a couple years ago around the fact of this isn't it. I was searching for fulfillment. I was searching for meaning in the success, in the money, in the fame, in the accolades. And it's not there. I looked and it wasn't there. And yet I'm finding it now and effectively what David Brooks calls the second mountain, in the service of others, in the reframing of this life's about me to now it's I am a part of something so much bigger and I get to serve and I get to be a part of this beautiful world and this beautiful community and I get to give as a result of what has been given to me. That completely and radically changes the entire way and manner in which we show up. Now, when I'm looking at the world, it's how am I playing a part of this rather than how are you all playing a part of my story? Y'all, that is radical. And so many of us are existing in how are you all showing up for me versus how can I show up and really serve and lead. Yes, it's not playing small when it has to do with everybody else. And this is why I wanted to mention this in relation to this question of, well, what do I want? Because that does not mean by any means that I am to be self-focused and self-absorbed and self-obsessed. In fact, I actually have found time and time again that this concept of self-love that is permeating our culture is highly dangerous because it is solely focused on the internal person, not for the good of the community, but rather for the almost self isolation and self protection of the person. But when we are doing the work to love ourself, we cannot help but have love translate outwards. That is the real element of love. Actually, I'm going to read. I was reading, literally talking about letting go, and since I have it right here, I was reading this morning about love and the numerical value of love. Um, I want to just let me find the section that I was reading today that I just thought was so potent. I'm just going to read a little bit. He says, sometimes it is best not to tell people that you love them because they'll get scared and think you have designs on them or you want something from them. Frankly, some people are afraid and suspicious of love. Therefore, you love such people without telling them. Lovingness is a way of being that transforms everything around you because of the radiation of that energy. It happens of its own. We don't have to do anything. We don't have to call it anything. Love is the energy that silently transfigures every situation. And I'm going to keep going. I'm jumping down. Forgiveness is an aspect of love that allows us to see life events from a viewpoint of grace. We forgive ourselves for the errors we made, even when we were less evolved. Oh, I'm getting a phone call. Okay. It is helpful to see the ego or small part of ourselves as a cute little teddy bear, which I think is cute. The teddy bear is not bad. We don't hate or scold that little bear. We love it and accept it for what it is, a cute little animal who doesn't know any better. We transcend the smaller aspects of ourselves by accepting and loving them. We see the ego as limited, not bad. Eventually, we just become love. Everything we do and say, every movement we make is energized by the lovingness that we have owned within ourselves. Whether speaking to a large audience or petting the dog, the energy of love is felt to be pouring out. We want to share what we hold in the heart as an experiential knowingness. And I had to underline all of that. And we hold it in the heart for everyone and everything, that they would be feeling it too. We pray for that inner experience of infinite love for everyone around us, including the animals. Our life is a blessing to everything around us. We acknowledge to others and to our animals the gift that they are to us. Love emanates from the heart. When we are in the presence of people who love each other, we pick up that energy. The love of our loved ones, pets, and friends is the love of divinity for us. When we go to bed at night, we give thanks that we were surrounded with love all day. Each moment is possible only because of love. The writing of this book is only possible because of love. In the state of love, we wake up every morning and give thanks for another day. We seek to make it better for everyone around us because the presence of love, things go better. The eggs get fried better. The ducky gets saved. The kitty gets fed. The doggy is adopted from the pound and brought home. We share our love with everything around us, all forms of life. Y'all, this is so beautiful. This is so important because that type of love is radically different than the love that is protective, that has its arms crossed, that has its boundaries and guards up. That doesn't mean that we don't have a boundary to protect ourselves and protect others. But what it does mean and is that every single action, every single decision is predicated in love, not predicated in fear. And there's a lot of boundaries that we make in relationship with other people that is called and attributed to self-love, but actually it's rooted in fear. And so in this leveling up of emotional frequency, like David Hawkins talks about, moving from shame, to guilt, to pride, to courage, to love, to peace. Each one of those levels brings us up in our ability to engage with the world from this place of fulfillment, but it's rooted from within. So this question of, well, what do I even want? That is so critically important because it is from the fullness of our own being that we then can overflow and give to others, that we then pour out, that we then give from our experience of love, that we then give from this experience of peace that is residing within us, rather than desperately grasping in the external world, looking for them to give us the thing that we're searching for. We're actually able to conjure it from our own selves and be our own wellspring. And then from that place, others can draw. And isn't that powerful? Imagine being a wellspring for your family. Imagine being a wellspring. We're talking about business. Imagine being a wellspring for your team. Imagine being a wellspring for your client. Y'all, this radically changes everything. And so in this conversation for women specifically, it is of utmost importance that the women who really are, whether you're a stay-at-home mom, whether you're working every day and coming home, your children and your husband and other honestly whether other people around you in the work environment as well, if you are at work, you've got people who are looking to you to be able to be this like this stable, and I just had this thought in my head, like this pillar, this beam, this robust, vertically aligned, positioned beam and pillar structure in the home, where man, you are this emanating force to set the atmosphere of your home, to set the atmosphere of the second they walk through the door, what are they going to experience? Someone I know and love dearly and deeply said that they could tell when their mom was in a good mood when they were a kid by whether there was a smell of cookies baking or the smell of cleaning supplies. And if man, they smelled cleaning supplies, they knew that they were done for. The entire day was going to be ruined because they knew their mama was in a bad mood. Women, we have so much power to control the atmosphere of our home, but it starts within us. It starts within our being. And if we're not actually doing the work to cultivate who we are, to make sure that we've got what we need so that then we're actually able to be a wellspring from which others can draw, man, we have to make sure we've got overflow for everyone else. Because if they're drawing from our cup, it's going to be dangerous for them. And when I say dangerous for them, I actually really mean that. There is an emotional danger when you experience a mother or honestly, a mother or a wife, regardless of which one, who is emotionally unstable, where you don't know who you're going to be interacting with. And this is why, I said this episode was for the women. It's the same thing for the men. I've experienced that firsthand. To have a man in your life where you feel like you're walking on eggshells. It's a dangerous place. You don't know what you're going to get, and so that's when the four F's come into play. Our nervous system activates fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. And that's where you see this very codependent energy in a home, because either one of the partners or both, and then the kids don't actually have a reliable, predictable experience with that person in the home. Y'all, and this is a mirror for me, even as I'm saying this. I actually have my own narratives and sound bites that I'll go to when I have one of those four F's activate. And one of those is wanting to take a pause or break in the conversation, in the relationship, to kind of pull back and be like, I need to actually go get strong, and I'm going to retreat and go to my little haven, get vertically aligned, and then I'm going to come back into the arena. Yet what I'm finding in certain relationships, not all of them, because some relationships, they actually really like that dynamic where it's like, okay, let's both go to the bench, not even armor up, but like freshen up, take a drink of water, cool down, rest, and then we'll come back and engage. Whereas other people, given their experience in terms of their past and what their narratives are, they're like, I actually don't want you to retreat. Stay in the arena with me. We can go to our sides of the ring, but we're not leaving the ring entirely to go rest and recuperate and come back for, fight two. We need to stay in the ring. And it's just a round. We need to stay in this ring until we're completely done what we're discussing or arguing or contending over. So it's so important that we understand each other's trigger points so that we can contend in the arena in a way that facilitates growth and healing while we figure out what is the solution to this opportunity And I even want to say opportunity instead of problem, because if we fixate on the problem, man, we're just going to be spinning our wheels. But if we're like, oh, this is actually, this is this is a gift. And I like that concept. I've never, okay, this is actually a gift. This thing, this topic, this subject is actually a gift for you and me. And we don't actually know what is going to occur when we unwrap it, but it really could be something in which when we do unwrap it, healing abides in there. And in so doing, we actually both level up and get to that next level for our own selves. Yes, our relationship, friendship, whatever that relationship dynamic is, but also for us individually. Because when we know how to contend with someone, it is so incredibly safe. Because once you've outlined, okay, this is what it looks like to go into the arena with you versus going into the arena with you, we then can ensure that you and I keep each other safe and we keep ourselves safe. Because that is one of the most dangerous parts I have found again and again for myself, for both men and women, is when we actually are trying to keep the other person safe versus keeping ourselves safe. And we sacrifice one or the other in so doing. So when I am codependent, I'm going to be focused on keeping you safe and not keeping me safe. And then I'm going to all of a sudden be like, wait, I'm getting beat up in this. Now I resent you because I've been sitting in your corner. Or I'm so in my own corner that I have zero empathy for you. And that's incredibly scary for that other person, because now their guard is going to go all the way up because they have to defend themselves and they experience no empathy from us. So when we think about, okay, how do we contend in this arena? It's actually really important outside of the, let's say, the moment of contention. Before going into the arena, what's the ground rules? And what are those hot topics that are so incredibly important for us to identify ahead of time so that we know when these hot topics come up, okay, ding, 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 we're going into the arena. Even if we're not actually feeling activated or triggered in the moment, we know that this is a hot topic and we need to treat it as such and always honor it as such. Otherwise, we're going to find ourselves in the arena apart from our own intention. And the goal is that we are living life with intention at every moment. Man, we live such beautiful lives if we so choose. And we have the ability to choose every single day, every single moment. We are creating our own legacy. And so if we're living with intention, if we're actually taking every moment and crafting it and designing it and creating it, we get to look back on our day, our week, our month, our quarter, our year, our life with so much pride at what we've built and what we've created. But it is predicated on the space that we take and give ourselves. So for me, the space is vertical alignment every single morning. And that space in vertical alignment is my time to create my life and to live with intention. Even this morning, I actually have found that with being with my family for, it'll be, I think, 12 straight days. It's like, wow, that's a long time to just be with people. I'm so grateful for my little room that I'm in right now that I just kind of get to be a hermit in and get some space. But this morning during vertical alignment, I just felt this need to like eliminate inputs again and just be quiet. And I actually texted my family this morning and was like, by the way, I'm feeling tired. I'm probably going to be a little bit more reserved today, just to honestly ensure that I don't act out of alignment. And so this space, this time can be taken in public, but it's so beneficial to be taken in private. And in so doing, that is the time, that is the space where we create our day, we create our life with intention so that not a single moment is wasted, so that we're living awake every single moment of the day. In the book, The One Thing by Gary Keller and Jay Papasan, they liken our day to a battery pack. As we wake up in the morning, we've got full energy. And as the day progresses, we get drained little by little. But if we go in at noon, 4, and recharge through that dedicated space and up the energy pack and the battery pack for the rest of the duration of the day, or until we then recharge once more, we're fully loaded, locked and loaded. And the thing that's really, really important, both for ladies and for men, is that when we think about it, we're all ready and all pumped up early in the morning when we go to work. But how much of our day and has drained us, so that by the time we actually engage with the people who matter most in our lives, we're on empty. That is so, dangerous and devastating for the people that we say we're doing all of this for. Well, we're giving this 90% of our energy, 80% of our energy, and we've only got 10 to 20% left for the people that we're saying, you're our why, you're my why for why I'm doing all of this, but this is consuming the majority of my daytime energy and attention. What is that actually saying? And that's where we need to be radically transparent, radically honest about the life we're living. Is the life we're living today a true reflection of what I espouse it to be? To say, is my behavior matching my belief? So I either need to change my belief or I need to change my behavior. So we started off talking about what we wear, and we started off talking about how, the physical output in terms of the clothes that we wear is a reflection of the internal state. It's the same thing for our behaviors. It's the same thing for our clothing. It's the same thing for every single action we might take. It's all predicated in a belief. And so at the end of the day, how much of my beliefs are actually contingent and predicated in what other people have said to me, handed to me, passed on to me, versus coming from within, and thus informing my behaviors from the extent of how I show up at work, to the words that I say, to the actions that I take, to the clothes that I wear. And then every single one of those holds an energy. If it's rooted and grounded in me and coming from my true source, my own self, it's going to be so much more visceral. I'm going to actually engage with the world in a way that I am proud of, in a way that I actually remember, because I'm present and alive and awake, versus me mirroring and mimicking everyone around us. Well, I could be asleep doing that, because I know that by rehearsal, watching everyone else live, I can just repeat those behaviors. If I'm living with intention, I have to live awake. I cannot do that on autopilot. Autopilot and intention are antonyms. I cannot do both at the same time. So therefore, if I want to live with intention, I have to live awake, and I cannot live as a copy, whether it's a carbon copy, a pantomime, or a reflection of somebody else, and I'm just a phantom. Guys, it's so important that we do this work to actually assess, am I living a life that I'm proud of? Am I doing what I want? And from that place, we actually become a wellspring for everyone we love. We ensure that we have the battery pack full charge by the time our partners come home, our kids come home, we come home. We actually have something to give, because we are deriving our energy and source from within, and we're doing something that we love, living a life that we love, behaving in accordance with something that we're proud of. And at the end of our life, we'll actually have something to pass down. And I'm when I say the end of our lives, we don't know when that is. I think of my 26-year-old brother-in-law who was killed by a drunk driver. He had a lot to pass on to every single one of us. I think about him so all the time. My sister, her entire life was marked because of his influence. And we all have the opportunity. We're making those kinds of influences every single day when we live with intention and we're living oriented and pulled from an authentic, true self. And that can be seen literally by the clothes that we wear. It's small, yet that alone is a reflection for us. Am I even, this is another thing, am I eating the food that I know that is good for me, that I want to eat? Or am I just eating mindlessly? I really want every part of my life to be conscious, to be lived awake, to be intentional. And man, it's so much more exciting when I live that way, when I actually am engaged. It said, what did it say? Experiential knowingness. We want to share what we hold in the heart as an experiential knowingness, and we hold it in the heart for everyone and everything that they would be feeling it too. So the question is, what's inside? What's the experience that we're having inside of us? Because that is what's going to be coming out for others to experience as well. So with that, thank you all for joining the Knowing Show, and I will see you tomorrow.